If I gave you a card and I put in the bottom corner of this card, 1 of 1. It's the only card like this. A piece of paper. Let's use that as an example here. And on this piece of paper, I put 1 of 1 on it. It's the only card like this. And it's blank. Or maybe I could just draw like a quick line on it, something to make it unique. How much would you, think about this for a second, bear with me here. How much would you be willing to spend on this? Seriously, think about this. Okay, it's coming from Zach. He is gonna mail it to me, and it says 1 of 1. So only piece of paper like this on the planet. Something tells me, no matter what you're telling yourself, something tells me, just from what I've seen from markets, something tells me that this piece of paper, after I write 1 of 1 on this, it would not go for very much money. Now, what's very much money? That's subjective, of course, but something tells me maybe as a laugh, this would go for like in the tens of dollars, maybe. But there's a lot to unpack here. Why, like aside from the joke aspect, why, if I tried to sell this to my friends and I didn't have a channel and I didn't talk about this stuff regularly, if I wrote 1 of 1 on this and I tried to take it to a card convention where no one knows me, I'm willing to bet most people wouldn't pay anything for this. Maybe $1 to make me feel good. So that's kind of what I want to get into in this video, as well as the Pop Reports, modern number Pop Reports. We'll talk about some vintage as well, kind of outline just to paint the picture here. But anyway, let's jump into things today. Hello, beautiful people. Captain Zach Sparrow. I hope you're having a great day today. Let's talk about vintage, middle of the road, middle of the, I don't know what you would call it, classic Pokemon as well as modern today. I wanted to really go over how cool it would be if I made my own 1 of 1, and I know someone in the comments now might mention that they would pay me thousands of dollars, I'm sure. But what if I wrote 1 of 1, and then on another piece of paper, I also wrote 1 of 1. And then on another piece of paper, I wrote 1 of 1. Hey, what if I just had hundreds of 1 of 1s? I don't know if that looked as cool on here or not, but I actually had that planned for a minute, so I hope it looked good enough. Anyway, there's a little bit of action for you guys today. So let's talk about Moonbreon right now. So modern day Umbreon from Evolving Skies. Let's just keep it to the English side right now. That card you're seeing grade fairly easily. Last I checked, you have over a 70% chance of gem minting, coming back a fresh PSA 10 for that particular card. And you're looking at, gosh, I forget already, you're looking at 6,000 and something PSA 10s for that card. Now, just previous videos, like the most recent videos on this channel, we were already talking about different full art trainers, chase cards, and actual chase cards that were going for less, even less than what this Umbreon card is going for, and significantly lower pop count. So at least the manufactured rarity of the PSA 10s for those cards, they are rarer in that sense. I want to bring up the conversation around the slogan, if you will, older, rarer, mentor, better. I know that that's just like, there's more nuance there, of course, but I know that term is thrown around quite a bit, and I know we reference it at least loosely on this channel every now and again as well, just to kind of make a point for a lot of different topics around cards and just investing in general within the hobby. But excuse me, older, rare, mentor, better is not right. Which is why there's nuance there, of course, with anything else. But I wanted to come up with my own really catchy saying that would be like more accurate, but I kept coming back to, all right, so it comes down to how much is out there, right? Supply. And then how popular is it? Or how much do people actually want this thing? Demand. And that was it. So again, I hate boiling things down to just that all of the time, but it really does circle around supply and demand, which is why I wanted to talk about all of my 1 of 1 cards too. Nobody cares about that. So there's no demand for that one of one, which is why you're also seeing the Lord of the Rings card go for, I don't even know what the bounty is now for that, over $2 million or whatever crazy, absurd number that is, which in my opinion is also, take this how you will, just my opinion here, I also find that insulting if I were a Magic collector, like a hardcore Magic the Gathering enthusiast, imagine that you just have a bunch of, I don't know, alpha and beta cards, a bunch of whatever, just some really old expensive stuff, and some 12-year-old on TikTok pulls the One Ring and it goes for the highest dollar amount of any Magic the Gathering card in history. Like, that would just be insane, wouldn't it? Like, I don't know. So again, that's manufactured, yeah, it's manufactured rarity. So that just doesn't sit well with my collector soul. But, you know, that's my anecdotal input for you guys today. But let's talk about how... So this is hilarious. This is actually hilarious. The modern day stonkage that we're seeing, I understand like the whole Chinese market being introduced to Pokemon. That's awesome. And I'm going to talk about that in depth here very soon for you guys. And I'm really excited for these upcoming videos. However, let's talk about Moonbreon and how, in my opinion, absolutely ridiculous these prices are currently. Yes, it comes down to supply and demand. Now, there's a lot of that speculative-driven demand, in my opinion, it absolutely is. Now, do I think that this Umbreon card in the long term could be one of the it cards from this particular generation? Totally. I think it absolutely has the chops for that. And I think people will look back on this card fondly if they don't get absolutely burnt and destroyed on aftermarket value for this card if it tanks later. We have yet to see what the long-term value looks for this. Again, we've got a recent video on the channel here that, in my opinion, I think succinctly showcases what happens to cards that aren't exactly the first of their kind as far as, like, and I mean first in the sense of, well, yeah, what do I mean by that? It's not base set. There, we'll just leave it really basic like that. It's not base set. It's kind of the middle of the road. However, you're still looking at first come-ups of these trainer cards. You're talking about the first time level X's were introduced. And you're talking about getting these cards that are much rarer, much more difficult to grade, that are going for substantially less or around the same price point. So yes, I think there are a lot of people in the modern world right now that are just being introduced, who don't understand, who aren't looking for these older cards. And maybe that also or indicates a buying opportunity for some of these older cards as well, which is definitely plausible. I could see that excuse too, which is, I'm always interested in hearing a well thought out, well articulated argument around why or why not that would be a good buy-in price for some of these older cards. But I also am looking at this and just the sheer, again, absurdity of these insane numbers for the modern day cards. Now, again, I love Modern. And I feel like I've been like kind of poking at Modern here lately because that's what's moving lately, right? I got to talk about what's actually moving. I feel kind of like that meme where whatever that thing is that's like got a stick and it's poking something that says, come on, do something. That's kind of what I feel like right now with anything outside of Modern Pokemon almost. So that's why we're talking about Modern. And that's, again, why I'm kind of poking the bear. But with a card it's that easy to grade. It's not rare in that sense. And when we have its benchmark as anything else in the hobby beforehand, basically. So it's not rare in that sense. Now, here's the thing, Zach, it comes down to demand. There's obviously more demand. And again, I went over why I think a lot of it is speculative demand, but you do have just sheer demand. And I am fully well aware that there's probably a lot of genuine collector-driven demand too. So what will happen with the price? Who knows what will happen with the price of this card? Do I think that it is too risky for what I like to invest in? I don't see the upside with this particular card. And the reason I keep picking on this card is because everybody has talked about this card at some point or another. And the question I'm asking myself is, I don't always say, hey, where can I 10x my money? Although that would be great. As soon as I find the answer to that regularly, I will let you guys know after I have abused that a lot. But I'm asking myself with this particular card, what's the 10x potential? And I just think it's so crazy for me to wrap my brain around why I would pay. The English version of this card is going for right around that $1,100 price point, plus or minus $100. I am asking myself, what is the 10x potential for this particular card? Do I still think there's going to be a nice chunk that will be coming back in PSA 10s here in the future? Yes. Are they easy to grade so I know that they'll come back as PSA 10s? Yes. Do I think there will be also equally cool or cooler cards in the near, mid, and long-term future? Yes. I can't be asked to put that kind of money into this kind of card. Now, do I think there are worse investments out there? Totally. Make it make sense, I guess, is my question for this card. Again, modern stonkers don't care about, facts don't care about your feelings, I guess. The market is what the market's going to do, what the market's going to do. But what I'm trying to talk around right now is I don't see this card 10xing in the next, let's say, 10 years. I don't see the card doing that as easily as I could see a lot of older cards, just because this card is so new. I don't see that playing out in that sort of light. I could be completely wrong. I could be totally wrong, and I'm okay to admit that too. I'm just trying to showcase my hesitancy around this particular product. I'm always asking myself, from a percentage basis outlook, what is the probability, and it comes back to probability, what's the probability of me seeing something like this? On the supply side, that's at least sometimes easy-ish to wrap your brain around. You can at least look up what's the pop report for this card. You can look on eBay, you can look on TCG Player and see recently sold and get a gauge for how liquid is this item. Are people talking about it? So you can get a gauge on the supply side. On the demand side, that's a lot more tricky a lot of the time, in the sense of, I have no idea. I have my own little pocket, and you could definitely call it an echo chamber in different communities that I hang out with. Whether you try to Google something, you try to look something up on Discord, Reddit, E4, any forum that you can think of, asking your friends even, you're not going to get a big enough average, if you will, of what does the market feel for this particular card at this time. How many people are just investing and speculating on this card to go up in the short to midterm, probably? And how many people have genuine interest in this card, and they're like, if this card was $5,000, I would find a way to sell my girlfriend so I could afford such a card. I don't know. I don't know where we lie on that spectrum. I will say, historically, what we have seen, I have seen legit just crashes with modern cards in particular, but we've seen that with vintage as well. But anytime that there's some sort of mania, which I would definitely categorize this as that. However, could it be sustained mania in the sense we might see a slight pullback on the card? Maybe not at all. And we see the card just rise from here. And you know what, Zach? That's about the lowest that card will ever get again in the future. It could totally do that. Again, I'm just saying, I find that a lot more difficult to wrap my brain around, because there are so many cards of this particular card. What will force people? Let's think about this for 1 second here. Here's a cool point, I think. 5 years from now, we're not going real long term. 5 years from now, there are going to be presumably many more sets of Pokemon introduced between now and then. 5 years from now, what will compel new collectors, new hobbyists, new investors in the scene to visit this card in particular? What is compelling people to go back and visit, to the previous video's point, an in full art trainer card or a Skyla trainer card? What is going to compel people to go back and revisit these older-ish, at that point 5 years from now, older-ish artworks? What will force people to do that? And because there are more cards, there's more on the market right now, it makes that a little bit more difficult for me to sink my teeth into when there are thousands of them compared to, and again, you've got to think of the dollar amount here, like thousands of cards, And then you're looking at well over $1,000 on the English side, and you're looking for over double that on the Japanese side. And those are even easier to grade. Don't get me started on the Japanese side. It's just incredibly interesting. There's obviously more demand currently. My question is, what is it going to look like 5 years from now, 15 years from now? What will this card look like 20 or 30 years from now? Let's think about that too. What is the card going to look like 5 years from now? What will this card look like 25 years from now? I'm not convinced that it's a home run investment. And it's totally cool if you want to buy the card and you're like, I'm not looking to stock out of the gate on this Big Z here. I'm just kind of looking to park my money in it, probably make some profit in the future. Probably isn't going to be the best investment for me, but I think the card's freaking dope, dude, no cap. And that's just where I want to go from here. And that's cool. But I don't think a lot of people are buying the card for that right now. It's subjectively, because it is artwork, but I would almost want to say objectively, it's a really cool card. It is. It's totally a cool card. It's so fascinating to think I don't have a good older example to look at that has a pop report that's exactly this, right? Nothing is exactly this. Although we could also look at the Mario Pikachu cards. We could look at the Poncho Pikachu cards, because I know we recently talked about those too. On the pop report scene, again, it comes down to popularity. I like Pikachu more than I like some other almost whatever Pokemon. I like Charizard better. I like Sylveon, but the popular Pokemon are popular for a reason. So generally speaking, everything else held the same. Everything else held stagnant. Whatever. Anything else held the same. The popular Pokemon in that regard will win out at the end of the day, right? So if we've got, bear with me here, my great demonstration for you guys, if we've got two Pokepokes, and one is Pikachu and one is Zach Squiggledy-Doo Pokemon, which one's going to win out over time? I know, it's going to be Squiggledy-Doo, isn't it? I see you typing already, so don't worry, I got you called out. So, what does it say here? It just says, oh no, it does say old school. Okay, I know someone was going to comment about my shirt at some point, probably. So, I just want to say I do play old school, because I don't play that new school stuff. So, I don't know. That's my thoughts on the card right now. That's kind of my thoughts on investing in the general modern market. Now, if you held out this long, let's talk about a little bit more macro environment, like as far as investing and the psychology goes on behind the scenes for investing in some of these older cards. I think it's wild that you can still get WotC era cards for, well, if you're bidding at auction, it depends what you're looking at in particular, but I still think it's kind of crazy that you can buy cards somewhere between 20 to 100 bucks a pop for a lot of PSA 7, 8, 9s, even 10s, some of them, depending on, the auction, the time that it's up, the Pokemon, of course. Now, Zach, that's never going to be a $30,000 card. It doesn't need to be a $30,000 card for that percentage basis growth. Again, I am cool with passing up on the modern day Umbreons. Let's use the $1,100 example. If I can get, let's see, if I could buy 100 other cards, or at 10 bucks a pop, or even 50 cards, 20 bucks a pop, whatever it is, around that number, around that price point, I'm much more comfortable with spending $1,000, $2,000, $3,000. It doesn't matter, whatever dollar amount. I'm much more comfortable spending a lot of money around smaller price point items if I believe the percentage growth is higher. We talked about this a lot on the channel, but it's very clear that a lot of people, and here's the thing too, people who have a lot of money, people who invest a lot, it does not mean that they are good at investing, and it especially does not mean that they are good at investing in Pokemon, and it even further doesn't mean that they're good at investing in Pokemon at this particular time in the market and understanding the different nuances and dynamics. There's some luck involved, of course. There are some unforeseen future whatevers in the future, right? We don't know the full story. You'll never know the full story. You can kind of put your hands in different pots and kind of steal, grandma's cookies over here, and you can steal your aunt's cookies over there. But That sounded really weird. I hope no one takes that out of context. But you can... I'm sorry, I try not to like laugh at stuff like that when I bring it up because I'm so ridiculous, but like I laugh at the fact of, did I really just say it? So anyway, if you did enjoy this video, make sure you subscribe and watch another one of my videos. And until next time, get your hands out of your family members' cookie jars. Odor, better, mentor, better. Gosh, that was bad.